Welcome to Life Stories. What if the people you loved most, your family, treated you like you were invisible? What if, after years of sacrifice, the only thing they ever noticed about you was how much you could give? Sarah knew what that felt like. For years, she played the role of the perfect daughter, always giving, always fixing, always putting others first. But one phone call, the kind that should have been filled with warmth, shattered everything. It was a call from her father, telling her that this Thanksgiving she wasn't welcome. No explanation, no apology, just a cold decision. What do you do when your family, the people you've spent your life trying to help, suddenly decide you're no longer important? Sarah had to make a choice, one that would change everything. But sometimes, the hardest choices are the ones that lead to freedom. Let's dive into her journey, where letting go might be the only way to find peace. The cold November air seeped through the cracks of Sarah's small Brooklyn apartment, the kind of chill that cut right through even the warmest sweater. She sat by the window, one hand gripping a steaming mug of tea, the other absent-mindedly flipping through the pages of an old magazine she had picked up from a thrift shop earlier that day. The gray sky outside threatened snow, but it hadn't quite made up its mind. It lingered there, heavy and silent, as if it knew that silence was all Sarah could handle right now. The phone rang, cutting through the stillness. Sarah glanced at the screen. Her father. She swallowed hard, her breath catching for a moment. She tapped the speakerphone, not allowing herself to hope for anything good. "Sarah, you don't need to come home for Thanksgiving this year." His voice came through, light, almost casual, as though he were discussing a grocery run rather than family. For a brief second, she thought she'd misheard him. Her mind replayed the words, her chest tightening. "What did you say?" "We just think it's better if you stay put," he continued, his voice betraying no emotion. "Jessica's been a bit on edge lately, you know?" Jessica, her younger sister, the one who never had to worry about anything, the one who always got a free pass, the one who never had to face the consequences. Sarah's heart sank. "Are you telling me I'm not invited to Thanksgiving because Jessica is stressed?" Sarah's voice was steady, but the words hit her like a slap. "Just because she's uncomfortable?" There was a long pause. Her father sighed, that familiar sigh that had always signaled the beginning of a conversation meant to shut her down, to make her feel small, insignificant. "It's just for one day, Sarah. You'll be fine." "Just one day?" Sarah repeated the words, the bitterness in her voice palpable now. "You say that like it doesn't matter. Like I don't matter. Do you even hear yourself?" Her grip on the teacup tightened, and the sound of ceramic hitting wood was sharp, almost unnatural. "You know, I've sent over $4,000 this year alone to help with the heating bills." $4,000, Dad. For your house. For the family." She paused, her breath shaky now, but she pushed through. "I've been paying the price for your mistakes. But apparently, none of that matters. None of it." She could hear the faint hum of silence on the other end of the line, like the phone itself was holding its breath. And then, finally, her father spoke again, his tone defensive, even flustered. "Don't bring money into this," he said, almost pleading. "You offered to help." Sarah let out a hollow, dry laugh that echoed around the empty room. "Offered? Offered when the house was freezing in January. Offered when Mom cried on the phone because she couldn't pay the bills. I paid them, Dad. I paid every last cent." Her father's voice cracked through the phone. "Family is family, Sarah." Her laugh turned bitter. "Yeah, but it sure as hell doesn't feel like it. Jessica gets all the attention. Jessica gets all the comfort. What do I get? An invitation that feels like an afterthought. A role I've never been allowed to leave." There was another pause. This time it wasn't her father who spoke first. It was the silence between them, heavy and final. "Don't expect me to send another dime this winter if I'm not considered part of the family," Sarah finally said, her voice low and controlled, almost too controlled. "You wanted peace? Fine, I'm done." Before her father could respond, she ended the call. The screen went black, and Sarah sat there, her hands trembling as she stared at the lifeless phone in her palm. Outside, the snow began to fall. She let out a long breath and slowly sank onto the bed, her mind spinning with the memories. The old photos of Thanksgiving's past, warm dinners, the smells of roasted turkey and mashed potatoes, the sound of her father grumbling about how his favorite football team's latest loss. Those memories used to bring her comfort. Now they felt like ghosts. Cold, distant, forgotten. She opened her laptop, her eyes still fixed on the fogged-up window. The wind howled outside, slipping through the cracks of her apartment like a whispering reminder of everything she'd been forced to give up. She opened the payment account, the one she had set up to help her parents with the heating, the one that she had silently poured thousands of dollars into over the past 2 winters. She scrolled through the entries, each one a reminder of her sacrifice. But it was the last one that stopped her. A payment made just 10 months ago, $400. For the cold, for them. But no one had ever acknowledged it. No one had ever said thank you. She hovered over the cancel service button, her fingers hovering just above the mouse. It would take one click to stop it all. One click and she wouldn't be the backup anymore. She wouldn't be the invisible, unpaid daughter. She stared at the screen for what felt like an eternity before her fingers finally moved. She clicked. The confirmation came, and she sat back in her chair. A feeling washed over her, not of guilt, but of clarity. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was in control. She wasn't the one who had been forgotten. She wasn't the one who had been discarded. The notifications from her family started coming in, first from her mom, then from Jessica, and then from her dad. But Sarah didn't respond. She couldn't, not anymore. Was Sarah wrong to set these boundaries? Was she too harsh? Or did she finally stand up for herself in the only way she could? What would you have done if you were in her shoes? The silence felt heavy in her apartment, but it wasn't the silence of regret. It was the silence of peace. The silence of someone who had finally chosen to live for herself, not for the expectations of others. But would they ever truly understand? Would they come knocking when it was too late? Sarah didn't respond to the endless stream of messages from her family after she canceled the heating service. For days, her phone remained silent, except for the occasional work email or an update about the snowstorm that had gripped the city. The quiet was strange. It was a relief at first, peaceful, almost like the calm before a storm. But as the days dragged on, the silence began to feel heavier, like an open wound that no one acknowledged. She tried to distract herself. She threw herself into work, spending long hours at the distribution center, sorting through boxes and organizing shipments. She told herself it was for the best. She didn't need to deal with the family drama, didn't need to explain herself. Yet, every time she returned to her apartment, the weight of the empty space pressed in on her. She didn't miss them, not exactly, but she missed the idea of what family was supposed to be. On the 6th day, the phone rang again. This time, it wasn't her father. It wasn't Jessica, either. The name on the screen made her stomach lurch. Mom! Her heart skipped. She hesitated for a moment, the phone dangling in her hand. It would be so easy to press decline, to ignore it and keep the peace she had finally carved out for herself. But something stopped her, an ache in her chest, a curiosity that she couldn't push aside. With a deep breath, she tapped the green icon and held the phone to her ear. Sarah, can we talk? Her mother's voice was strained, fragile. She sounded older than the last time Sarah had heard her, like the weight of these past few weeks had taken its toll. Sarah closed her eyes and leaned against the counter. Her mind flashed back to the call before Thanksgiving, her father's indifferent tone as he told her to stay away. Her mother hadn't said a word then, just quietly accepted it, as always. She had never been the one to stand up for Sarah. Not when Sarah was little, not when she was growing up, and not when she was older. Always the quiet observer, never the protector. I'm listening, Sarah said, her voice colder than she intended. She could already feel the walls she had built between them beginning to crack. I know I've been silent, Sarah, but I'm not asking you to come back. I'm not asking for money. I'm just asking you to hear me out. Her mother's voice cracked, and Sarah could hear the sound of her breathing. uneven, like she was struggling to keep her composure. Sarah clenched her fist around the phone. Her mother had never asked her to come back before. She had always expected it, assuming Sarah would just do what was needed. But this time, it was different. This time, Sarah had drawn a line in the sand. "Mom, I'm not sure what you expect from me," Sarah replied, her words sharp, but she couldn't quite keep the bitterness out of her voice. "You were the one who told me to stay away because Jessica needed peace. You were the one who ignored me when I was the one paying all the bills. When I was the one who made sure you all had heat in the middle of winter. So don't act like this is some grand revelation." There was silence on the other end, a pause long enough for Sarah to hear her own heartbeat in her ears. Then her mother spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how much you were carrying until it was too late. And now everything's falling apart." The words hung in the air, too heavy for Sarah to ignore. Her mother had never admitted this before, never said she understood. And the truth stung more than Sarah expected. "Why didn't you ever stand up for me?" Sarah asked quietly, her throat tightening. "Why did you let them push me aside, time and time again? Why did you let me be the one who always had to fix things?" Her mother didn't respond immediately. Instead, Sarah heard her sniffle, as if she was holding back tears. "I'm sorry, Sarah," she said finally, her voice trembling. "I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you." Sarah closed her eyes, biting back the tears that threatened to spill over. There was a strange emptiness in her chest now, a hollow feeling that she hadn't anticipated. She had wanted this, had wanted her mother to acknowledge the years of hurt and neglect. But hearing it now, after everything had fallen apart, only made it feel emptier. "You're not the one who's been hurt the most," Sarah said quietly, her voice tight. "You don't get to apologize now, not after everything. You've had your chances, and I've had mine. I've learned to live without you, without all of you." There was another long silence before her mother spoke again, her words barely audible. "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "I just wanted you to know. I didn't know how much you needed me until it was too late. And I'm sorry." Sarah didn't know what to say to that. She didn't want to hear apologies that came too late, not when she had spent so many years trying to fill the gaps on her own. She had built her life without them, learned to stand on her own 2 feet, to no longer be the invisible daughter who fixed things. And yet, in this moment, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. "I can't fix this, Mom," Sarah said quietly, her voice steady now, but the weight of the conversation left her feeling raw. "I can't keep doing this for you. You've made your choices, and so have I." She hung up before her mother could say anything else. The phone slipped from her hand, landing softly on the table. She stared at the wall, her mind reeling with everything that had just been said. In that moment, something inside Sarah shifted. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was from Jessica. A short message. "Mom says you're the reason everything's falling apart. I'm sick of this. I didn't ask for any of this." Sarah read the message twice before setting the phone down with a cold, empty feeling. She wasn't surprised. Jessica had always deflected, always made everything about herself. The message stung, but it wasn't new. It was the same cycle, the same selfishness. And for the first time, Sarah felt nothing. No anger, no disappointment, just a heavy, cold silence. But as the snow began to fall outside, Sarah's thoughts turned inward. She had made a choice, hadn't she? She had cut the ties that bound her to a family that never really saw her. She had built a life of her own, one that didn't require approval from anyone. Yet the question lingered. Was that enough? Could she really move on, or was she doomed to carry the weight of her past forever? What would it take for her to truly be free? To let go of the anger and the hurt and finally live for herself? The doorbell rang. It was an unexpected sound in the midst of the stillness. Sarah stood up, heart racing. She knew, without a doubt, who was standing on the other side of that door. What would you do if you were in Sarah's shoes? Would you be able to move on, or would the weight of family still hold you back? Sarah had cut the ties. But did she truly have the strength to live with the consequences? Would the choices she made finally bring her the peace she longed for? The truth was out there, but would she be ready to face it? The doorbell rang again, louder this time, its shrill tone cutting through the heavy silence of Sarah's apartment. She stood there, frozen for a moment, her heart beating hard in her chest. Her mind raced, the thoughts of her mother's call still echoing in her head. She wasn't ready for this. Not yet. But something inside her, the part that had been silent for so long, the part that had learned to suppress her emotions, to put herself last for years, whispered that maybe, just maybe, this was the moment to face it all. She took a deep breath, her hand trembling as she reached for the door. Her fingers brushed against the cold handle, and for a second she hesitated. Was she truly ready for what lay behind it? She opened the door slowly, the creak of the hinges sounding far too loud in the stillness of the apartment. There, standing on the threshold, was her father. His face was gaunt, eyes red and tired. He wore his old, worn-out gray coat, the one Sarah had always associated with the long winters they spent together as a family. His shoulders were slumped, the weight of the years pressing down on him. "Sarah?" His voice broke the silence, and she could hear the desperation in his tone. "We need to talk." She looked at him for a long moment. The man who had always been so distant, so emotionally unavailable, was standing there now, vulnerable, almost pleading. The man who had once told her to stay away for the sake of Jessica's peace was now asking for something. What? Her forgiveness? Her understanding? "I don't know what you expect from me, Dad," Sarah said, her voice steady but cold. She hadn't expected this moment to come like this. She had expected anger, maybe, or more silence. But not this. "I don't expect anything, Sarah," he said softly. I need you to know that I'm sorry. I should have never pushed you away. I shouldn't have let things get this far." She felt her breath catch in her throat. For a moment, her emotions swirled, everything she had held in for so long threatening to pour out. All the years of feeling invisible, of feeling like nothing more than a financial lifeline, of being pushed aside for the sake of peace. Her chest tightened, and she fought to hold it together. She wasn't sure if she was ready to forgive him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. "You were right," he continued, his voice breaking. "You did everything for us, and we never appreciated it. I didn't appreciate it." His words hung in the air like a heavy fog, suffocating the space between them. Sarah shook her head, trying to keep the tears at bay. "You don't get to apologize now, Dad. Not when everything has already fallen apart. Not when you've already let me go." He reached out, his hand trembling as he placed it on the doorframe. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I came here today because I need you to know that I see you. I see everything you've done, and I'm so sorry for the way I treated you. I was blind, Sarah. I didn't see it until now." She wanted to say something, something cutting, something that would make him feel the weight of all the years of neglect, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she just stood there, staring at him. His eyes, filled with regret, mirrored the ones she had seen in the mirror so many times before. Eyes that had been stripped of hope, eyes that had been hardened by the years of sacrifice. The silence stretched between them, thick and heavy, and for a moment, Sarah thought she might break. But then she heard it, a soft, almost imperceptible sound, the faint sobs of someone behind him. Jessica. Sarah turned her head, her heart dropping into her stomach. There, standing just a few feet away, was her sister. Jessica was hunched over, her arms wrapped around herself as if she were trying to hold her shattered world together. Her face was pale, tear-streaked, and for the first time in years, Sarah didn't feel the rush of anger she had grown so accustomed to when looking at her. Instead, she felt a pang of something softer, something that felt almost like pity. Jessica looked up at Sarah, her eyes wide with a mixture of guilt and desperation. "I didn't know how much you were carrying," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I didn't know. I'm sorry." Sarah stared at her sister, the one who had always been the center of attention, the one who had never had to face the consequences of her actions, the one who had always been allowed to fail and be forgiven, the one who had torn their family apart without even realizing it. The apology was empty. It was too little, too late. But Sarah couldn't bring herself to lash out. Not now. Not after everything that had happened. Why now? Sarah asked, her voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and something else, something she couldn't quite name. Why all of a sudden? After everything that's happened, you're finally sorry? Jessica swallowed hard, her eyes flickering between Sarah and their father. I don't know, she said, her voice shaky. I've lost everything. I've lost everyone, and it's all because I didn't see what you were doing. I was too selfish, too focused on my own problems. I never thought about what you needed. I never thought about how much you were hurting. Her father stood there, watching them both, silent. The weight of the years hung in the air like a dark cloud, and Sarah felt the tears finally spill over. Not because she was angry. She wasn't angry anymore. But because she had spent so many years believing that love had to be earned, that sacrifice was a sign of strength. But now she saw the truth. Sacrifice without appreciation only led to bitterness. And there was no amount of apologies that could erase the damage done. You can't undo the past, Sarah whispered, her voice breaking. You can't fix everything with an apology. You can't fix it with guilt. It's too late for that. For a long moment, none of them spoke. The snow continued to fall outside, a quiet blanket covering the world, as if it too was waiting for something to change. Finally, Sarah took a step back, her eyes never leaving her father and sister. I've spent my whole life trying to fix things, but I'm done now. I'm done fixing things that I never broke. With that, she closed the door gently, the soft click of the lock echoing in the empty room. The finality of it hung in the air like a whispered goodbye. She stood there for a moment, her hand resting on the door, her heart pounding in her chest. Outside, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in its cold, silent embrace. But inside, in her small apartment, Sarah felt something new, something that she hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. She had let go. And for the first time in years, she felt the warmth of the fire inside her own heart. What do you think of Sarah's decision? Was it the right thing to do, or did she let her family go too easily? If you love this story, comment 100 to let us know. Where are you watching from? Share your thoughts with us. Don't forget to share this video with your friends, and thank you for watching Life Stories.